Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, welcome to day 3. Okay, okay. Um, Welcome to day 3. I have taken my time to go through every single person's submission of the assignment, and I am very, very impressed. I am very, 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 very impressed. But before we do that, let's take some time to say thank you to SC for taking the time to record our class yesterday, right? So because of SC right now, a lot of you will have the opportunity to view the class from yesterday all over again, right? So I really want to say I appreciate SC. I don't even know if he's here in class. SC, are you in class? If you're in class, okay, he's in class. Nice, great. Um, hmm. I've gone through the assignments of virtually how many people now? A lot, like 20 people. Well done, right? Everybody deserves a thumbs up. A few people have not submitted for their day 2. I didn't see anything for their day 2. While a lot of you did not do day 1. But regardless, those of you that just continued from yesterday, you didn't miss anything, right? Priscilla, your hand is raised. You can unmute and speak to me. I want to know what's up.
Okay, so I tried to do my own assignment and I didn't see where to submit it for day two. So I had to paste it on the side of day one. I don't know if you were able to view it. I didn't see any column for day two.
Okay, so that brings me to something I want to make a correction for everybody. So as you can see, someone's assignment here is saying design file, right? I will appreciate it if everybody's name is attached at the beginning. So for example, this design file should be SC. SC's design file or Sandra's design file, right? Or Adimchi Christopher's design file. So Christopher, you say you still have difficulties with yours. What is the problem? Right? Then Israel, your hand is raised. What do you have? What is it? Unmute and talk to me.
Okay, yesterday night I was trying to work with my system, so the thing just locked me off, like almost shut down my system. So I was like, you wanted to crash my file or what, on my hard disk. So I stopped. I reboot the system, it came up. So I decided not to go through it again. Let me use my phone to see if it's from my phone or from my system. When I tried with my phone again, it get me the same response, the same thing. That was what I screenshot and posted in our group. So I couldn't do my own again.
Okay. Your problem is a RAM problem, right? So that is something we try to troubleshoot after class. So
Yes.
let's after class we can troubleshoot it. So just remember to say it on the group again so that we can attend to it. Christopher, I mean Israel, unmute and talk to me. Israel, I don't want to waste time. We have 2 hours, and today we're supposed to start doing some level of UX, but I've changed my mind. We're not going to do UX. We're going to leave the UX till the last day. What we're going to do today is, first of all, we're going to look through some of the assignments that were taught, and we would correct some things. Then we are going to do grids. We're going to talk about grids, and then we're going to talk about components and assets in Figma and for designs. And then finally, I'm going to pick a random dashboard design from the internet, and then we'll replicate it using the principles that I will teach you today in class, right? Um, so far, we have been dealing with mobile. So I need to show you that there is not just mobile, there is also web. Israel, your hand keeps being raised. Can you explain to me why your hand is raised so that we can move on? Exactly. Good. All right. So first, good. I can see that some people have immediately changed the name of their file. That's good. So Marianne, we'll start from you. And you turned in I don't know if to call it second best or the best. Um, right. I was really impressed with your work, right? I went through everybody's work, but there was something that Prince, I don't know if I still have this on open. Prince did something in his assignment that I appreciate very much. Right? So everybody really did well. I saw everybody's effort. I was just looking out for the auto layout, and everybody really did it. Could it? Um, but there's something Prince did here that I appreciate very much. Okay, this is page one, page two. All right. So he knew that he needed to create a auto layout for remember me and this particular rectangle. Even though this rectangle is not in the design, it's not correct, it's not supposed to be there. But I appreciate the fact that he put those two in a auto layout on its own. before putting an auto layout around that one and forgot password. Um, all right, Prince just joined. Prince. So I was giving you praises, right? It was even the main design. Oh, there's actually a rectangle there, so he actually got it perfectly right. So I was saying he was able to do something that I really appreciate. And I'm going to explain it to everybody here now. In every single thing across the internet. So let's actually explore, right? Let's open Pinterest. I want to show you what I call families in design. So first of all, we're looking at this Google interface, right? And we just searched for Pinterest. And as we searched, what we noticed is that this interface is divided first into two, then into three. The first part is this top part, which is the header, where you can impute your search, right? About that search. Then the search result, which starts from here, is divided into two. It talks about Pinterest because this is actually an organization, and then it brings out search results about Pinterest. Now, the question is, why is it that they in Google were interested in separating this from this? And what did they use to determine what should be here and what should be here? And that is what we call families in design, right? So if you go to someone's house, you can easily tell where the sitting room is and the dining table. The reason why you can separate that is because the chairs at the dining table all look alike and can be grouped together as a family and put around the table called the dining table, right? While the chairs in the sitting room, they all have a certain pattern. They are more open, and then they allow people to sit in a more relaxed position. They have, that is a family. They are not all jam packed together, right? Secondly, the person that actually designed the house separated the dining from the sitting room. The reason being is they wanted you to be able to know on coming in that, oh, put in a dining here and chairs around it. And then also put in, this place should be your sitting area where you put in your sitting chairs for general people or for yourself. In design, right, there are families. So certain things in your canvas are close together and certain things are far apart. So for example, let's look at this design very well. This login screen, for example. And you can see that this set of entry fields with the button are closer together than these other ones at the bottom. So it is taught, right? The person that designed this said, oh, the user that will come in here will have the first option to put in their username and their password. But this person can decide to just sign in using their Google, their Instagram, their Twitter, or their Facebook. But this is not the most important thing. So let us put it far below at the bottom. Let's put them all together so that you see them, right? So this person did not carry Instagram logo and put it up at the top and put Google in the middle. They put them all together. So you know that, oh, these are the other options for designing with. It is called putting elements in families, right? So families of content. So for example, if I was to write content for a website, when I write the mission, I'm not going to come and put the vision statement under it. I must put the mission statement under it. So the mission title and the mission statement go together. That is a family of content, right? This thing I am explaining to you, right, is one of the things that you're going to use in designing anything. So you need to understand that, oh, for example, let's use my hands, for example, right? Fingers, these phalanges, right? They are not on my face, right? Because they are not useful there. But they are here together, and one is not here and the other is here. They are all here together as a family. So that the moment someone sees this, recognizes that this is a hand with all the 5 fingers complete. They work together like this, right? Um, I'm bringing this to your notice because as we work together today, we see that we will put content, right? Every single thing here on your screen is a content. So this field is a content. Everything is a content, right? But contents have different uses, right? So this content now, the user has to interact with it in a way that they have to impute their own details into it. In some places, the content is to view. So for example, you can see me. This content you are viewing, right? In another place, you read. So if you go into the chat, the content there, you read, right? Um, so every content everything on your canvas is content, but they actually have different uses and different purposes. And it is those different uses and different purposes, those functions of content, that determine which contents go together and which ones must be apart. It's called families of content, right? Um, so we'll move forward. Now, I was saying that in the assignment that Marianne turned in, she did a very good job, right? First of all, she separated the sign up from this family of content. And then she's able to separate this from this one here at the bottom. Very good job. I'm impressed. Prince, what I said about Prince's work was that I like the fact that he was able to use auto layout to separate remember me with the box and forget password. What other people did was that they put forgot password and remember me together in an auto layout, and they now put the box and the others in an auto layout. That was the wrong way to do it. This was the correct way to do it. So that is why I was pointing it out. He's the only person that actually put it together like this. Um, all right, so let's move on. I'm going to go back to our file. Okay, there were some people that made a mistake. All right, see this person? This person actually used group instead of using auto layout. If I was grading, you lose points for this, and I'm grading actually, right? Um, you can correct that. Benjamin. Benjamin went the extra mile of coloring the background and giving it some flair and all, right? Impressive stuff. But then I noticed Let me zoom in so that everybody can see it clearly. I noticed that the frame around your text is not hugging your text. So if you go in, you find out that your text has a fixed height. Look at it here, 29. Normally I think it should be 19, right? If you are using what's your font size, 14, right? Whatever it is. But you see, because this is bigger, the frame itself, the auto layouts that you did is not aligned in the center. I can see that the square is almost touching the edge of the auto layout of the container. And same with your, I agree with. So I think this thing is the auto layout that you have here is from the top. So you are spacing what do you call it? The padding from the top is imposing the most, right? Auto layout, display flex, flex direction, row, alignment, flex start, flex none. To correct that, right? This auto layout is not done correctly. If I duplicated this file, I'll be able to see exactly. Let me duplicate it. Oh God. Okay. So this is a duplicated file. So as you can see, because I duplicated it, this design column is now showing. So I can actually edit this. So let's go into this and see what I was saying, right? So you see, look at it. I was right. Stop aligned, right? Which is not correct. It's supposed to be center aligned. You see, but the moment I center align it, this I agree, is going closer to the top. The reason why is because the container around it is fixed. So I want to show you guys this. It has a fixed container, fixed size, but it's supposed to be auto height, right? So whenever you face issues like this, right, just come here and check. Is this a fixed size or auto width? So auto height, and that solves it, right? The moment you press that, that solves it, and it becomes what? Correct. So I'm going to go back to files and delete this file because I don't need it. But I hope you guys took that correction. All right, let's go back to our own file. So today, let's go back to SC because SC is our, it's our bad guy. So let me go and bring back our file from where I kept it. No, I don't need it. Let's start afresh. All right. Okay. So today, I want to teach you guys three things: grids, assets, and components. If you remember, at the top here, there's what we call assets. So what are assets, right? So we'll get there. But first of all, let's talk about grids. So if we look at day 11 very well, we notice that let me put my rulers on. We notice that this design has margins from the left and from the right. How is it that the designer of this was able to maintain these positions, right? As you can see, the designer that did this kept his entire design between a certain margin. So how do we translate this into our own designs, right? It is very important that our designs are properly aligned and not just scattered, right? Um, so, okay, I think there's a reason why I need to bring back those other designs at this point. You're welcome, Benjamin. You can see. What is going on? What is wrong with this cursor? This is crazy. Anyway, hmm, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Hmm. I have been designing for almost 2 years and I've never come across this. Very interesting. Hmm. Wow, we're almost 1 hour into this class already. That's not good. Okay, it's back. Crazy. All right. Can everybody see me or see what I'm doing? If you can see what I'm doing, please let me know. Okay, great. Christopher, your hand is raised again. Why? Okay, thank you. All right. So when I was designing this on the very first day, right? I told you guys that I was not concerned about where this thing was positioned on the canvas, right? This one has a particular position from the top, and every other thing too, right? So there is clear use of spacing in this person's design. How did that person come up with it, right? So we are going to create, we're going to figure out what two things: grids and layout, right? So there are two types of layout. There's web layout and then there's mobile layout, right? Web means that it is visible on a laptop screen, or not just on a laptop screen, any screen that is actually has an aspect ratio that is, 16:9, 11:9, you know, just landscape mode. Landscape mode aspect ratio is desktop what? A desktop layout. When it is now portrait, when is a portrait what aspect ratio? We're talking about mobile. Sometimes it's tablets, but those tablets are those smaller Android tablets. But those two orientations determine the layout of your product. So imagine designing a product in a landscape layout in web, or having to translate it into a portrait layout in mobile. How do people do this magic? How do they condense something that was built or designed to be landscape what into what portrait? And that is done using grids, right? That is the fastest way to achieve it. You use grids to actually position elements on your design canvas that they can easily be moved when you change the orientation. All right, so let's start with grids. How do we create grids? So first of all, I'm going to put a mobile canvas. So iPhone 13 mini, let's put one. And then let's put a web, a desktop. Now I need you to know that the ones I am choosing are the ones I use on a everyday basis. Every day, right? Now, if you notice, when we designed this, we had a spacing, this padding from the left and a padding from the right. And they are not equal. One is 26 and one is 38. It should not be so, right? So how do we create our canvas in such a way that every time we put elements on it, we know that that is the correct position? We use grids. And to put grid, it's very simple. The moment you click on a frame, you can add grid to it right here on your right panel. So let's add a grid to it. Now, the moment I added a grid to it, you can all see that there is now a 10 by 10 grid on it. Very, very small, small. See them? This is a 10 by 10. So each of these boxes has 10 in it. But I cannot be designing like this, right? So the most important thing for me is to have a grid that allows me to pad or create margins properly from the edges of my frame, such that my design is consistent throughout. So let me explain that practically. When I come and click on this icon, these 9 circles, it brings out the pop-up that tells me, oh, this is my grid, it has a size 10, and this is the color. But now, I am more concerned about my margins. So I'm going to change my grid to columns. Now, the moment I change my grid to columns, you can see that it automatically changes to columns. Now I have a 5-column grid on my iPhone 13 mini frame. But also, I can see that my grid starts from the very edge to the very edge. There is no margin. So I want a margin. So I come here and I add a margin. Let's say my margin is 10. The moment I add a margin of 10, you can see that the grid moves in by 10. So any design I put on this canvas, I can start it from the edge of this grid to the end. And I know that it will always have a consistent margin from the left and from the right. Now I'm going to use 16. 16 is my regular margin. And I will explain to you at the end of the day why I use 16. Excuse me. Okay. All right. Sorry for a brief interruption. So I'll go over this again. And the reason I'll do that is so that those people that are just joining can understand. So I have a frame and I am concerned. I want all my designs inside this frame to always have the same position from the left and from the right. So I'm talking about the margin such that anytime I put an element on my canvas, with relation to the margin, to the edges, is always consistent. So if you check, let's find a design online, right, to understand this concept better, right? Good. So we have one here. Let me load up. Good. So this person created a design, a sign up page. And as you can see, there is a clear equal distance from this edge to here, and from this edge to here. And it is consistent from the top all the way to this bottom. So all these elements are more like a rectangle from here to here. That is called margin. So there is a margin, a specified margin of about 200 pixels from this edge to this edge, and from this edge to this edge. So is it that this person that designed this, every time he puts an element on this cardboard, they have to go and manually make sure that the space from the edge to here is the same? They didn't do that. What they did was they created a grid and they used their grid to design. And that is what I'm trying to show you now. So We are going to put a grid on this. And to do that, we just come here and add, right? So now we have added a grid, but we need it in columns. So we come to this drop down and do columns. Now these columns are 5 in number, but there is no margin, right? So I'm going to include a margin. This margin is 16. The reason it's 16 is something I'm going to explain later. It's called spacing, spacing between elements. Like I told you before, everything is a family of content, but you don't put all content at the same place. So how do you determine spacing between content? So that is also something that we do in design. It's called spacing. So I'm going to show you. So there are different nomenclatures for spacing in design. And mine, I use a 4-pixel spacing nomenclature, but I'll explain it better later on. So now we have a margin of 16, which means if we zoom in, this our grid is off the edge by 16 pixels. Then we have a gutter. What does gutter mean? Gutter is the space in between these individual columns. So let's say I wanted it to be 30. I press 30. You see that the columns reduce in size. I made it 50. They will reduce in size further. But I generally like my gutter to be the same size as my margin. So I'll make it 16. The count is 5. I can increase it to 9. I can increase it to 12. But I like it at 4. I like it at 4 because that is also consistent with the spacing or nomenclature that I use. So now we have a spacing nomenclature of 4. A grid of 16 gutter and 16 margin. So let's imagine now that we want to design what we designed here before on this. Let's bring it closer. Or before we do that, let's do the grid for our desktop. If we're going to do a desktop design, we also need to do a margin. So I add a grid on it. I go and I add columns. Now my columns, what margin do I want to use? Literally, you can use any number that you like. I particularly like to use 75, and I keep my gutter at 40. At 40, I leave my columns at 8. Right? This is how I design. I use this setting to design for desktop. Right? Now let me explain to you why margin or these margins are important. Let's imagine, let's go to this dribble. Let's see if we can reduce the size of this website. The zoom function, where is the zoom function? It's not working. Let's leave that. If I was using my Windows now, it would have worked perfectly. Someone is asking me what is the benefit of a grid. We're going to see that now. Okay, so I have created a grid for this iPhone 13 mini. So let's use it to design. Right? First of all, I change my background color to that we see here. I zoom in. The reason I can easily zoom in is because I use a shortcut. As you use Figma, you will learn it better. So I want to create exactly what is here, right? I add my auto layout around it. I give it a fixed height, 48. I come and I left align it to the center. Then I zoom in. And I will move this to the edge of this grid. As you can see, the moment it gets there, it highlights, right? I give it a stroke. The stroke is black. I make it red. Then I give the corner radius to 24. Now it's perfect. But I want to make this to have is so I'm going to use my grid now, right, to design this without actually what normally before I just chose an arbitrary number of 150 for the sizes of this my what um entry what do you call them now, for this my entry fields. But instead of doing that, I'm just going to use my grid to achieve the same thing. So as you see, the moment I come to that portion of the grid, it snaps there. I can snap it to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one. I did not even have to bother about the space or the size of this button. Now it is 164. Now if I duplicate this button, and the reason why that is like that is because the spacing, my frame size is not an even number. If it was an even number, it would have been perfectly 16 everywhere, right? So it's 15 here because that extra 1 pixel is not given. It's 175. You cannot change that. That is that's nomenclature, you know. I don't know why they made it like that. It's supposed to be 176. But let's leave it. Now, yesterday I taught you guys that you put these two in an auto layout, right? I've put them in an auto layout. Right now, next thing I'm going to duplicate it. I bring it down. You see how they are maintaining grid? I'll delete one. There's only one left in the auto layout. See it. I will go and carry that one and expand it. Done. I'll change the name to email. This button now, I can duplicate it very easily. Email, I'll duplicate it inside. I change the properties to space between. Change this one to password. duplicate, confirm password, duplicate, delete one, get my rectangle tool, put it in between, fix this, make it 20, make it center aligned, write the I agree, remove my rectangle, I edit it, make it 5, corner radius, remove the color inside, or change the color to my background, add a stroke of white, spacing in between is 10, I like it. Then maybe I edit this color of this to red, make it red. That's that, right? I carry my email button again, duplicate it, bring it down. You can see how everything is maintaining grid. Centralize it, make the color, fill it with red, remove my stroke, come and edit this to sign up, make it bold, and there you go. I'll group all of them, put them in an auto layout, give them a spacing of 16, which is consistent with my spacing from the margin and between my gutter. Now that's the family, right? I have done that properly. This is what grid and auto layouts do for you, right? I make sure that this auto layout I have created of this family, I put it in the center aligned. What does that mean? It means that every single element I add into this will be from the center. Okay? I can now add other elements into this, sign up, write it up here. Sign up page, I increase the size, maybe 36, bold. Now, I'll just come and I'll make sure it sits on the grid. As you can see, the moment it sits on the grid, I know that it is at the correct margin from the left. How do you know? You always come and zoom in. Try and always zoom in. As you can see, it sits perfectly on the grid. If I check, it is at 16. So this is the use of grid in your design, right? It makes it super easy for you to position things without having to design the spacing of every element. Normally, I didn't have to determine the size of this button. I just knew that I needed 2 buttons that were of equal size at the top, right? I just used my grid to determine the size of the first one, and then it automatically became the size of the second one, right? Those are the advantages of grid. So today is the very first day I'm going to allow you guys have access to these things that I'm designing, right? I'm going to leave them here. I will not remove them. So let's use desktop. Let's now use desktop. Let's create something desktop. Let's go to Pinterest, right? And find something, anything, right? Let's look for a dashboard. So someone says, how do you make the choice of a grid? Good. So the choice of a grid depends on the spacing you intend to use in a particular what design. So for example, in this design now, the spacing I'm going to be using is what? 8 columns. So my spacing is still 4. But when the spacings can be bigger, right? So I use multiples of 8 and 16 instead of multiples of 4 in desktop, right? So when I'm putting things in families, those families are usually spaced at 16 pixels away from each other rather than by 4 or by 8 that I will use in a mobile what or portrait orientation, right? So you choose the type of grid you want to use depending on the spacing you want to what use. Some people use 5, some people use 8, right? Whatever you want to use. Those are things you are going to have to use research to figure out. For those of you that will get access to the course, that will get scholarship for the courses, in that course, these things are explained properly, right? In detail. So the people that will get that scholarship will get access to that. The rest of you, I can give you a discount for the course, but that's the most I will do. It's not compulsory. If you actually attend this class and use YouTube, you'll be fine. But those of you that are blessed in life, all right, let's find something. Okay. Um, this is complicated enough. This is easy enough. Um, looking for something that is not too deep or has various kind of content. Okay, I kind of like this. The reason I like it is because it has a lot of things in it, right? It has a lot of things in it, right? Um, who knows how to? Let's use Google to find out. Anyway, how to? Let's see. Just find out how snipe to. So there's no snipe in Mac. So sad. How to snipe on Mac? Who knows how to snipe on Mac? Because I don't need the whole of this thing. I just want this. I can use Google anyway.
You can use Shift Command 4.
Okay. Okay, I think I've seen that before. Yeah, thank you. I actually have used this before. I'm not used to the commands. Thank you very much. Um, okay, so here we go. I go and choose something this complicated. It's quite, but it will also allow us to learn how to much better. There's a lot of elements on this, right? Well, let's see. Does this thing that we're looking at now, does it have grades on it? Can somebody tell me? Does it have grades on it? Great. So let me add rulers. As you can see, this person has clear margins. The person that designed this has very clear margins of how they want their design to be, right? The second thing you can notice is the elements don't all have the same sizes. So this one has a particular size. This one has a particular size. This one has a particular size. A a dashboard that is using three different sizes on top of one grade. How did this person do this? So first thing I have to make you understand is um, as much as it is important to design with grade, it is not a hard fast rule. Some people still do break it, right? Like this person did. I'm almost tempted to leave this person's own and go and find one that did not break the rule. But I like what I'm saying, right? Let's see if we find something else. What is people's suggestion? Should we go ahead with this one or should we find another one? Okay, someone said let's go ahead. All right. Okay, we have a few minutes left. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns. So let's imagine that this is this design. I'm going to count it 1, 2 columns, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 columns, 1, 2, 3 columns. Does that make sense? Right? Based on our own grid is divided into 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's imagine that we made our own grid 9 columns, so that, yeah, so that is another thing you can always do. Let's make it 9, right? Doesn't matter anyway, right? Now, I'm going to, like I said, this is 1, 2 columns, 1, 2, 3. Then this is 1, 2, 2.5, kind of. So instead of doing that, we're going to be 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. How do you share it? You have to share it in a ratio, right? How to share this ratio? That is the importance of this ratio that I'm trying to do. This is a ratio, this is mathematics. It should not be this difficult if this person actually just used 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I think that's what I'll do. I'll just maintain it at 8 so that it is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And let's get on. Now, first thing, let's try to create their own, let's try to copy. Oh yeah, you're right. They use the 12. Nice one, Elo. Thank you very much. It's easier to divide it into 3 that way. Yeah, you're right. You're very right. So if it is a 12 column grid, yeah, one is 3, the other is 5, the other is 4. All right. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other is 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you very much. Right. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to use 12. Right. So let's get on. First things first is we notice that this UI is divided into two. The top half, which has color, and the bottom half, which has less color. So let's do that. So I'm going to use a rectangle to represent that top half. Now, can you see something? I want to show you guys something. When I'm editing the height of this rectangle, when I get to the half way line, there is a red dot there that snaps of this frame, right? So I'm going to leave. Now I'm going to change the color of this, but I don't want it to be solid because the one I'm seeing here is not solid. It is actually what? Linear. So I'm going to come here and add linear to it. Change the direction of these things. I can add multiple, can add another one, right? Now, when you do this, you see that on this place, they're all here. Each of them has their own color, right? So I'm going to choose for each one. So let me start with the orange, right? No, I want it at the edge. So I'll move it. I'll move the orange one to the edge. This one, I want it to be purplish. Good. And then this final one, I want it to be this bluish here. Perfect. Right? Good. We have created the top part of our design. Now I am going to lock it. See me, I can't see this anymore. So I'm going to lock it. Next thing I want to do is impute this circle that represents the profile, right? So I'm going to create, I can use circle and I can use frame. So let's use a frame. So I come and I press frame and I put it here. And I make sure I make it rounded completely. For it to be half of the height. So I make it 50. But I don't need my circle to be that large. See it there, it's so small. So I reduce this to, let's say 48. I'll zoom in. You can see my frame. My frame is 48. The moment I get to the edge of the grid, it snaps in, right? I want to add a border on this, a stroke. I make the stroke white, increase the size to 2. Well, I need to add an avatar into this. So I'm going to come to plugins once again. I use plugins and I write so I have different plugins that I use for avatars. I can use content reel, so which I will use content reel. Adeze, you're asking a question. What are you adding? What was that question about? So that I don't understand the what are you adding at this point.
When you were putting the colors, you called
Okay.
it one name.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll do that again. All right,
thank you.
I'll do that again. I just been wasting time. Is there any other person that was confused about the colors, the gradient stuff? This is wasting my time. I'll use Unsplash. With time, you get to know these things that I'm using, right? I'm not trying to focus on all of these things. I'm trying to focus on you guys getting to know how to use these things. I'm hoping I get to the point of doing components. I really hope I get there because that is very important, right? Very, very important. Okay, yes, there will be useful components in this place. So I'm just going to create one. I'm going to use it like that, right? So this is, I want to put an avatar inside here. I use presets, come to portrait, um, tells me to insert random, and I'll do that. What is wrong with this? Okay, good. It has inserted a random one. I don't like that one. I'll press it again to insert a different random one. Okay, we're a woman. Cool. Okay. Now the next thing I'll do is we have dashboard, calendar. I wonder what that is. But this is something I want to show you why grids are important, right? So I'm going to write text. I'm going to put dashboard. And then I am going to make sure that I put this my dashboard in a auto layout that is equal to the size of this grid here. Auto layout. I will move it on it until it is at the edge. There, right there. I'll centralize it. And then I'll draw this until it is like this. Good. So now we have 3 of this. So I'm going to bring a second one. I can see it is equal to the grid again. It's not equal in this place. Has this reduced? It's not equal, so I'm going to make it equal to the grid every time. Same with this, multiply it again, and it's equal to the grid. Uh, Good. 1, 2, 3. Their spacing in between is 20. See it here. And the reason it is because I'm following the grid. I'll put them in an auto layout so that they don't move. I'll carry this, my guy here, and also put it in an auto layout with this. And I'll move it to the end. And I'll make sure the spacing is 20, just like the rest. Now you can see that when I reduce the space, it moved from, it moved towards this side, and that's because the constraint on this is not constrained towards to the right. So I'll Control Z, change the constraints to right center, and then I'll move even this. I'll also change the alignment to right center, and then I'll change this to 20. You can see it adjusted in the right direction. All right, let's move from there. Good. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a component. So what are components? Now let's look at this design. Can we all see this calendar that is here? Can we all see this calendar that is here? Great. So someone just asked the question, is there a problem if it is out of grid? So let's take, for example, this one now, this element that we have created. If you see them, they don't look like they're arranged on the grid. That's not the problem. When I created those elements the very first time, I used the grid to create them. That is the fundamental thing you need to know. Then I arranged them to stay on the grid. So each of these elements, right, is following the spacing and the grid size of this entire project at every single time. And that is because I created each element, first of all, using the grid. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question? Does everybody understand that concept that I just explained now? All right, great. Thank you. Now, I said I was going to go over this gradient once again. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'll remove the eye on this one and then make this solid again. Make it white. Then I'll start again. Right. Now to add this person here of shapes. These are actually shapes that have gradients on each of them, right? But I don't have time to do all of those things. So I said I'm just going to create a single rectangle and I'm going to create a gradient on it. So what is a gradient? A gradient is shades of color that flow into each other. So it's not a solid color, but it is more than one. So if we look at this here, you see a shade of purple, but the shade of purple here is different. And the final shade of purple here is different. The same with orange. The shade of orange here is different. The shade of orange here is also different. And it is also different here, right? So that is a gradient. So I said I was going to create a gradient on this rectangle here. And how to do it is when you come into this place, like I've showed you before, you see solid. So this is a solid color of white. I'm going to change it to linear. I can change it to radial, I can change it to angular diamond, and I can import an image right into this place, or a video, right? But I'll change it to linear. And then this is the direction of the gradient. So if I added a color, let's say we added orange, right? Let's add this orange. You can see this orange is going from top to bottom. If I change this one and I make it this blue, they merge on the vertical axis because this, my gradient line, is from top to bottom. But I want it to be diagonally, so I'm going to move it. And that is why it is like this. And I said I can add another color. I can add multiple by just simply clicking on the line. Anywhere on the line, I can click and add another one and add and keep adding. I'll delete this ones. I'll delete this one. I just want one more. I can move it anywhere on the line. Change the color. So I want it to have this shade of purple, right? And there you go. We now have a gradient, right? That's really it. That was all I showed. Okay, now let's move ahead. I want to show you how to create components, right? Very important to me. You're welcome. We have 30 more minutes in this class. Now, if we look at this calendar, can we all agree that around each of these numbers here is a box like this? That every single number here is identical to the next. The only thing here now is that this particular number 12 is highlighted because that is probably the day in that year. So we're talking about the 12th day in the month of July 2020, right? So every single box here, what is identical? Same with the top. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they are all identical. The only difference is that the text inside is different. So the size of the box is the same, the size is the same. So I can create a component called day of the week and multiply it such that I can edit what is inside, but it will always have the properties of the main component. So let me explain that again. So the best way to explain it is to actually from two there. I put auto layout around it, Shift A, and it is equal. I'm going to centralize it. I like the size, it's okay. I come and I name it. I name this component date, right? Now that I've named this component, I can make this a component. What does that mean? What do I mean by making this a component? To make it a component, it is going to become a parent. So every single child I create out of this will look exactly alike. Well, let me show you something. Let's take this to this place so that it is visible. So this is date. I'm going to give it a few color of white so that we can see it clearly. Right? Now, if I duplicate this date, I have duplicated this date here. But if I edit it, this one would edit individually. So let's make this 20. As you can see, it has edited individually. Now let's do something else. Let's make this first date a component. To make anything a component, you come to this thing here at the very top, and it says component, create component. So I'm going to create a component. This is now a component. So let me duplicate this component. Just like before, I drag. Now, if I edit this main component, check, just look what will happen to this this baby what component. So this is the parent. How do you know it's the parent? There is this sign at the top here that has that original sign that was here. See here. You can see it here. That makes you know that this is the parent what component. This other one is a component, right? But it's baby. It's the baby. You can see that there's nothing inside, right? Good. So when I edit the parent component, let's say I make this 20. The baby also what changes. What are the importance? What is the importance of using components? So for example, let's say I created this calendar. So let's do that quickly. I'm going to I'm going to create this calendar. Control Z. This I'm going to lock it. Now there are how many columns? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many days? 7 days. Okay. So I'm going to duplicate 7 places. Control D. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to put all of them in an auto layout because I want them to be equally spaced. 10. Then I'm going to duplicate this row into 5 columns. Right? I'll duplicate it again. 5 places. Now, I'll grab them all and I'll put them in an auto layout. The spacing in between is 27. I want it to be 10. Good. Now that looks a lot more closer to my what? To my calendar. I can edit. I can go into each of this and edit the numbers there. This is 1. This is 2. Control Z. So you see something. When I edited this one, right, the size of the box reduced. Why? Because the parent element is using hog content. That is the reason why. If I change the parent to fixed, let's go back, return to instance. See, it has automatically come back to what? To behave the way the parent element is behaving. So this is 1. I make this 2. Make this 3. Make this 4. Make this 5. Make this 6. Make this 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. Oh, Jesus. Calendar is a headache. 15. 16. I wish I could do all those things I used to do in YouTube videos. Just fast forward. It's complete. Someone is asking if there's a plugin for calendar. Most likely. I've not used it before, but that's not the aim of this. I'm trying to teach you how to use components. So 31. So here is 1, right? Back to 2, back to 3, back to 4. Now I want to show you why components are magicians, right? So as you can see in this calendar that we have here, some elements here have a circle under, while the present date has a color, a fill color on it, right? And it actually has shadow. So how do I, instead of going into 12 now and editing it to look like this, how do I use this parent to create this effect? And even make these ones that are grayed out, how do I use this one component to achieve that? So let's carry this our component. Let's bring it here. Now that's what now this component is a parent, right? I'm now going to create a variant of this component. A variant says that, oh, I'm taking my properties from the main component, but I want to behave in a particular way. So before I do that, I'm going to add all of these other properties into this main what component. So that dot, I'm going to add it here. I'm going to use a circle to do it. I've added it inside. I'll reduce it to 6. Okay, good, right? So we have 6. Now, as you see, the moment I add this in here, it's going to add in all of them. Look at it. I'll edit it to 4. It's too big. But there's something else I'm going to do. I don't want the position of this circle to affect the position of the number. I want the number to always be in the center, just like this one, right? So I'm going to make this circle have an absolute position. Look at it here at the top here. The moment I do that, my parent component begins to behave normally. What happens when you create something in absolute? Okay, so before I continue hurrying up, I'm going to recap. Someone says I should recap, and I agree with you. I think I was going a little bit too far. So let me recap. First of all, I created a date component. And the reason I created a date component is because I looked at this and I saw that every single one of this are exactly alike. It's just going to be a number inside the box. So I came and I created a component for that number and I named it date. And I put the number inside and I gave it these properties. And I said the property is that the spacing in between elements is 10, the padding is this, the padding is this. But I gave it a fixed height of 35. I can change the fixed height to 40. The moment I do that, all components, all babies take up what? Those properties. But how did I make this how did I make this guy a component? I can click on anything and come up here and make it a component. So see the component there now. Can create a component out of it. I can say I want to reset changes of this component. If maybe I made a change to this particular component, let me do that. I'll make it red. I can just come here and reset it and it will go back to look like the other one. I change the number back to 1. Now, the next thing I did was that I added an element into this main component. And this element is a circle. But this circle does not show up everywhere. It only shows up on those dates in your calendar where you actually have an event. But since I am creating a parent component, I added it there. But I don't want this element to affect the position of the number inside this component. So I made it have an absolute position. To make it have an absolute position, I came up here and I pressed this icon here. Now, the moment I gave it an absolute position, it begins to act independently inside this component that is an auto layout. The reason why this eclipse affected the position of the number was because this particular component is an auto layout. If it was not an auto layout, if it was just a regular frame, right? Like this, if it was just a regular frame, it would not have affected it. But let me Ctrl Z that because I need it in auto layout. But because it was in auto layout, the element I added immediately affected the position of the number. But this eclipse now that I have given an absolute position automatically begins to act independently. Next thing I do is I give the eclipse a color. Let me make it red. So they all appear red everywhere. Now I'll hide it. The moment I hide it, it's there, it's in every component. But I can go to each component now and then I'll show it. So on the 16th day, it's showing. On the 23rd day, it's showing. On the 24th day, it's showing. Right? Exactly. I did not have to do anything extra. Just because I added it in what? The component, it is now showing any other place. I can add it any other place. I can add it to 12. So now I just have to show it in 12 and it will show up there. Now that's not. Let's continue. The next thing that we need to do is to make this component act like this. So if you give it this color, right? For that to happen, I'm going to make a variant of it, right? So I don't want all of my elements to have this particular property. I just want some, right? I just want one actually. So for me to do that, I create a variant of it. To create a variant, I come here, I click on the main component itself, and I come and create a variant, add a variant. The moment I do this, there is a property created here on the right saying, oh, for this component, you have created a variant named variant2. What do you want to name it? I want to name it active date. Now I can go ahead and edit this variant to have the properties of this thing. So let's change the fill color from white to this color. It is now pink. So you see it is now pink. The inner color is white. So I'll change it to white. It is bold. I make it bold. But it also has a shadow. So this is the very first time I'm teaching you about shadow in this class. So to add a shadow, if you can see, it has a shadow. This thing under here is a shadow. So I'm going to add a shadow to this. And to do that, I come to effects and just press plus. You can see it now has a drop shadow. I can edit it, but I'm not going to edit it. That's not my interest for this class, right? So this now has a shadow. The second thing you notice is it has rounded edges. So I'm going to add rounded edges. I'm going to make it 8. Good. So now we have a component named active date that has rounded edges. I can come in here now and change this from default, because this is named default, to date, active date, by simply coming here and pressing the drop down menu and changing it to active date. So there you go. I now have my calendar showing all the dates, the ones with circle under and the one with the active date. Any questions? Tomorrow when we come, we'll actually create this UI completely, every single thing. Okay, good. Someone says I should recap the variant. All right, so I'm going to press Ctrl Z all the way through. Okay, good. Let's zoom in again. So I said that there is a date component, right, active in this place. And this date component has 4 states. First state is the regular date. The second state is the active date. So this is the date that we are today. The third is one that has an event, right? And then the final is the one that is for the next month. So it is not active. We're not in this month. This is the inactive month, right? So I created what? A major date component, and I named it date. And then from this date, I created all these many children. Now, inside this date component, I added an eclipse to represent what? A date that has an event. And the reason is because it is the only component that actually has another extra element into it. So I had to add it into the parent what? Component. If, for example, there is a star inside any of these dates, let's take, for example, there's a star in 26th. I will come to this parent component and add that star. So let's add a star into it. So we have a star here. I zoom in and I add my star inside. I reduce the size to 4. So there you go. You see, we have a star right now. Now you see this star will appear everywhere. Everywhere. It's even appearing on these ones that I have done this. Right? But I only want this star to be on 26th. So first of all, I'm going to give this star an absolute position. The reason I'm giving it an absolute position is because the moment I introduce this star into this component, it has auto layout. So it is affecting the position of the number. It is no longer in the center, which is what I want. I want the number to be in the center. So I will give this star an absolute position. Now, I also don't want this star to be in the same position where this circle is. So I want it maybe to be at the top of the number. I'm going to move it. I can use my direction key. Now it is at the top. So you can see it's at the top everywhere. I will change the color of the star to black. So the color of the star is now black. I still don't want this star to show up everywhere. So I will hide it in the parent component. Now, although it is hidden in the parent component, it is available in all the other children components. So I am going to come to 26th. And inside 26th, if I come to my layers panel, I will see that there is an eclipse there and a star, but it is hidden. And I can bring, by pressing this I button, I can make it what? Visible. So automatically, I now have that star inside there, right? Good. Maybe that star represents Independence Day. Now, I want to create this component, this variant of this date component. This variant says that, oh, this is the active date. Then I also want to create another variant for an inactive date. So I'm going to create two variants. So I come to my main component, and I come all the way to the top here, and I see add variant. Now, the moment I add variant, it shows up here on my right panel saying, oh, I want to add a variant called variant 2. I'll change the name from variant 2 to active what? Active date. Now, I'll go back to my main component and I'll click here to add a variant. So I want to add a variant from this. Or I click the entire component and I add a variant again. You know, I want to create two variants. Now, this is called what? Variant 3. I changed the name to inactive date. Good. Now that I've done that, I'll go ahead now and edit these variants. I want this variant to be pink. So I come and I change the color to pink. No, that's not the pink I want. So I go use my color picker. And yes, this is the pink I want. Good. So you see it is pink. I also want this to be white and to be bold. I come and edit it. It is now bold. Secondly, I want this particular variant to have corner radius. I come to the corner radius and I put it. It's 8. Lastly, I want it to have a shadow. So I come to effects and I add shadow. There are different types of shadow, but I'm not going to do that today. I may never even do it in this class, right? That is something that you can study and play around with and figure out. I'm not even going to edit the shadow, but we have added shadow. This variant is called active date. The last one I need to edit is the one that represents inactive date. If you look at this here, the only difference between active date and inactive is that the inactive is gray. So I'm going to come and I'll click on the number and I'll change the color to gray. I think that is sufficient. Now that I have done this, I have created 3 different states. There is the main default state, see it here. Then there is the active date, and then there is the inactive date. Let me make this one default date. In exactly 10 minutes, we'll close from this class. So now I can go into my components, into this place. This is my calendar, and I can start editing each and every single mini or baby variant or yeah, and give it the property of a variant here. So I want this to be the active date. I'll make it active date. I want this one to be inactive. I make it inactive. Now you need to recognize that normally, if you did not use components to create this, you will have had to create each and every single one of these boxes, one after the other, and made them to look like this. And then if you made a mistake in one, right, you have to edit that one individually. But because we have created a master component, right, and variants of that master, we can easily just edit the properties of each of these um, children, and they will just take up that of the parent, right? So now I can quickly just complete this this our calendar. This is a auto layout. It has no padding, so I'm going to give it a padding of 16. 16, please, not 116. I'm going to give it the top padding of 16 as well. I'm going to give it a color, a background color that's equal to white. Now you can see it is now white, right? Now there's one more thing left. I need to add the date at the top, the title, which is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm going to create a component for that. I'll write it here. Day, Sunday. Let me zoom in so that you can see it. Now this Sunday, I'll give it an auto layout. It is now an auto layout. Centralize it and make it a component. The name of the component is weekday. Now that I've given it that, I'm going to change, I'll give it a fill color, and then the color of the text. The text is a little bold, semi-bold, so I'll make it semi-bold, and the color of the text is not black. It's almost there. That's all. I'm now going to duplicate this. I'm going to create babies out of this, right? Just duplicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. I'm going to select them all and put it in an auto layout. Now I'm going to make sure that for these things to coincide, just like this ones, for them to be on the same line, the sizes of these boxes must be equal to the sizes of these other boxes, right? So this box is what? 40. So I'm going to make sure this one is 42. So I'll come and hug contents, change it to fixed width, and make it 40. You can see that those ones also automatically changed. I'll come to this my component here, and I notice that the spacing in this my auto layout here is 10. So I'm going to come here and make this one 10. That's all. And I'll move it into this my frame. The moment I do that, I can edit these ones. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now, without much talk, I have created my calendar right here, right? This is what I learn how to use spacing. So now I can carry this my calendar into this place and put it on this my grid here. Now, but you can see that this my grid, this my something is not according to the space of this grid. That is another conversation that we'll have, right? So basically, I'm supposed to have done the sizing of these boxes based on the size of my grid. That's something we'll do tomorrow when we come, right? But I want you guys to go and create components and create your own calendar just like this. That is your assignment. And put it on a desktop that has its own grid, just like this. I am tempted to, I don't know what to do. If I should move this out or if I should leave it. If I leave it here, people will just copy it, it will not learn. Yes, attendance is going to go on. Attendance is just like normal. You're going to go to the WhatsApp group and type present. So it's regular. You can actually go and do that right now. So are there any questions? Are there any questions? Hey,
Yes, I have
my
questions,
class
sir.
captain is just joining right now. Chai.
You said,
Okay, someone is.
can I have my
Yes, you
question?
can, please.
Okay. What if I already have a detail of what I want to do and use one of the box to have all my details, then duplicate it as many as I want, and now re-edit the numbers and the the days.
Are you saying you want to use one box for both the
Yes.
numbers and the days?
Then have them duplicated, then re-edit them. Then going all through the processes, one after the other.
There is
I don't,
no process. So let me explain something again to you people.
okay.
The reason why this thing took long is because I'm showing you people. If I was designing here alone with myself, all I would have done is created this box. One, made it a master component, created this variance immediately, created this one for the day, and immediately, like it will take me actually less than 5 minutes to be done with creating this thing that I just did here. Right. The moment I'm done with that, I put them into auto layout and I create this. That's all. Right. So the reason why it looks like it took so long is because I am trying to teach you people how to go about it. So that is the advantage of using components, right? If I was to, if you guys were to create this thing individually, I would have had to create 7 boxes times 4 times 5. That's 35 boxes individually. Don't you think that that's hard work?
Okay. I don't know. I have another question. So,
Okay.
are you trying to say that we'll be doing this? If you have about 12 calendars in a month to do, in a year to do, does it mean that we
Mm.
will do this for each of the months? Do you have any auto generating plugin that can generate the months for us?
When you are designing, first of all, you don't need to show the entire months of all the years. You just need to do this. So this person, when they created this component, they made sure that they showed active date, then showed event and what it will look like. So it showed states for every single what aspect of the calendar. But your question is there not an automatic something for where you can get a calendar? And I have not done that research before. So you could actually research. You can go into plugins and search for calendar, and maybe you might find what you are looking for. Is there any other question? I need to leave this class now. So someone says they were present but could not keep up. It's fine. All right, at this point, someone asked the last question. Say if you detach an instance from a component, what happens? So that's a good question because that is what each of these boxes are called. First of all, they are called instances of a parent component. So this is an instance, right? For those of you that are still in class, if you, for some reason, do not want this particular instance to behave like the parent component from which you made it, you right click and come here and detach the instance. Now, if you detach this instance, this particular box begins to act independently. It's like what we did with that circle inside the main component. That circle is independent. So it doesn't behave like the parent anymore. It becomes a UI element, just like any other thing on this canvas. The only time you detach elements or detach instances is when you really need to make an edit that it cannot be part of the main component anymore. That's only when you detach instances. But the moment you detach instances, it cannot take properties from the main components anymore. That is something that is very important to note. All right, at this point, I'm going to call it a day. I'm expecting an assignment with this inside, right? A part of me wants to. So what I will do is that I will take this one away. I will leave the instances here. I don't want people to use them, but I want you to interact with it. Okay, I'm just going to leave everything. The only thing I'm going to take is my calendar. So I'm going to leave every other thing for you guys. You already have access to this file. Someone is asking me, so detaching, is it a last resort option? So there are situations where you want to detach. Let's take, for example, coming. To be honest, that is a very advanced class. It's teaching you the situation where you want to detach. Because, for example, let me show you something. Do you know that if I edit this default component, default date, it does not change for these other instances, right? And that is a blunder. So let's take, for example, I make this 50 by 50. These ones don't change. They're still 40 by 40, right? That's a blunder. How how is it that some properties, even though these are all in a component, this change does not affect these others? So that is another class. So we call those master components, right? Um, I'm not focusing on that for the scope of this class, right? But when you detach an instance, it means that you want that particular instance to actually act independently. Sometimes you might detach an instance by mistake. When you do that, it's a very sorry situation. If you don't control Z immediately, you're going to lose that instance forever, right? So that's, I hope that is able to answer your question. Oh, okay. Someone says I'll keep that to the master. Yes, components are a very good thing. Now, by the way, I said I'll show you assets. If we come to assets now, because we have components, you see them here. See them. So I can actually right now create another what? I can create another calendar right now from this what singular what asset, right? It's an instance of this what main component, but it shows under asset column. Another advantage is that if I go into another page, let's say we go into a saucer, right? I can create a calendar here by using assets without having to copy, by just dragging and dropping, right? That's that. Can you see that right this very moment I have created another calendar? Let me finish it up, Seth. I wish somebody could have calculated the time it took to do this, right? In the space of how many minutes I have been able to what to, like, let's take for example in the space of maybe 3 minutes, I've been able to create this. All I can do now is just edit the numbers. I can make one, so that is the advantage of using components to do this. I didn't have to go and stress myself to go and start creating all the 32 boxes or 35 boxes afresh, right? I hope that you guys can replicate this later on. Let's go back to SE's page. I really hope that by some means SE has been recording this class. Okay, I'm going to call it a day. If you have any questions, drop them in our WhatsApp group, and then we'll continue from there. Yes, the assets panel holds every component that has been created, every single one. Components. Okay. Have a beautiful evening, people. I have been in this place an extra 10 minutes beyond my time. Thank you very much. I hope people know the assignment. I hope people know the assignment. Oh, Allah.